So how do you keep your key light from washing out your background color in a small home studio space? How do you do it? I'm going to show you on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions. You've probably got photo questions. You know what to do by now. Go to askdavidbergman.com. Submit your questions right there on that site. I just might pick it to answer here on a future show. I'm back on the road. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm at the house of Kurt Ozon. Thank you, Kurt, for letting me use your house and your home studio and your lovely girlfriend, Colleen. Thank you guys for helping me out today to make this video. I've got a question that was sent in by Tim W. and Tim wants to know, when shooting in a small room as a studio, is it possible to stop flash from affecting the ambient? For example, if I have a color LED lighting a wall and I've exposed in camera for how I want that to look, when I take the shot and use flash for the subject, it ends up washing out the background. I assume the light is bouncing around off walls and such in the small room. Is there a trick to handling this? Hey Tim, thanks. That's a great question. You know, this is a very common scenario. A lot of people work in their home studio space. Like I said, we're here in one today, and we are surrounded by white walls, and it can be tricky when you don't have a space that's built to be a studio, and you maybe don't have all the grip gear and all of that kind of stuff to really control your light so that you can get all the colors that you want. Now, Tim talked about using an LED to light the background. I'm going to do this. It's basically the same thing. I'm going to do it with flash today, but an LED or flash, it's the same concept. Basically, what you want to do is the idea is to separate your front light from your backlight, because any light that comes from the front and hits that background is going to change the look of that background light. So what I've done to first create my background light is I took a speed light earlier and I taped a blue gel on there. Colleen's wearing a lovely red outfit today, so we put a blue background for some contrast, and I taped it on. Now, the first thing to do when you're lighting your background, whether you're using a constant light or a flash, is to make sure that light is giving you only the color that you want. So when I taped the gel on there, you want to really put it on carefully so that no white light is coming out. You're basically covering the entire flash head. No matter what kind of light you're using, you don't want any white light spreading around, because that's already going to be a challenge. Now, I'm using gaffer's tape, and it's a very simple way of adding gels on there. I'll put links to the gels and all that stuff down below. But there are much more elegant ways to do this. There's a company called Magmod, which I've talked about plenty of times. They make a gel system with magnetic adapters and things that make it much easier and really does block all of the light a little more elegantly than just using gaffer's tape. But in a pinch, this will certainly work just fine. So I've got that down on the floor, and that's hitting my background. And I'm going to show you first what that looks like without the front light, and you can see how that light looks once I've got my exposure. Let me grab a camera. Where did I put my camera? Here's my camera. Don't want to lose that. So, by the way, gear-wise, I'm using the Canon R5 with the grip. I just like having the grip on there. I like the way that feels, so I always add the grip. It's got 2 batteries in there, which is nice. I'm using the RF to EF adapter because I'm using an EF lens. This is the 85 1.4, beautiful tack sharp portrait lens that I love. And then I've got the Canon STE3RT, just rolls off the tongue, that model number. That's my wireless transmitter, and I'm using all Canon speed lights, the 600EX RT speed lights. So first thing I'm going to do is I can control all my lights here. So I'm going to turn off my key light, which is group A. I'm going to make sure that's off. And I've got my B group, which is my background light, on. We're going to take one quick picture just to show how that background looks. Colleen is a pro, so we are good to go here. I'm using the eye detection, so I don't really have to worry about focus. And boom. And so now we can see how that looks with just that background. And it's a nice deep blue color, right? That's exactly what I want. The problem now is we have no light on Colleen. So she's a silhouette. We want to definitely light her up a bit. Now, my first instinct in a portrait is to use a big modifier. I like to use very large light modifiers. So one of my favorites is the soft lighter. And I did a picture earlier today with that, so you can see how that looks, just to save some time from switching these around as I go. But using a large modifier like that, guess what? That light goes everywhere, right? And you can see the resulting photograph completely washes out that background. That's with the blue light background firing exactly the same exposure. By the way, I'm at 100 ISO, 250 to the second at 3.2. That's going to be my exposure throughout this whole shoot. And you can see how it completely washes everything out. She looks great, but it just washes out that background. So The challenge is you just really can't use a modifier that's that big in a small room that's surrounded by white walls and white ceiling. So you're just a little bit more limited in a space like this. So the first thing I would do is use a smaller modifier. This is the, what is it, the Photech Light Dome, I believe? Rapidome, yep. PhotoFlex, the PhotoFlex, Photech is the soft lighter. This is the PhotoFlex Rapidome, and it's actually sold as a kit. It comes with the stand and the modifier and a grid, which we'll talk about in a second. But first, without the grid on it, it's a smaller modifier. So it's already making the light a little more directional. It's still spreading quite a bit, but it's just a bit more directional than that giant soft lighter, right? So let's first make a picture here of Colleen, and you can see how that looks. And now, if we come over here, and that is off because that's group A, so I'm going to turn that back on. Group A is now on. That's at half power. The other one's at eighth power. So, because I'm shooting all manual, which I do, that's how I like it, and boom. And we can see how that looks. So that background is still pretty washed out. Not nearly like it was with the soft lighter. We're seeing some of that blue now, but not nearly as much as I'd like. Not as much as I saw before we added that light. So the next thing I would do to try to get more color back there is I'm going to move this in closer. By moving it in closer, what I can do is I can lower my exposure, the power of this flash. I can lower it down. If I move this in right about here, I'm probably going to lower it a full stop down. And what that's going to do using the inverse square law, which I've talked about in other videos, and you can go check that out if you like, is less light is going to be hitting that background. I'm going to get the same amount of light on her because it's closer, but I'm bringing down the power, and then less light is going to be hitting that background. So let's do that. Let's come in a little bit closer here. I'm going to put this camera back down, and I'm going to bring that in, and I probably need to lower this just a little bit, right? Let's bring it down just a tad, right about there. And let's go like that. And now I can take this. I'm going to go my group A. I'm going to change, going to lower it to a quarter power. And let me just reset this one. It's been off for a while. There we go. And now we're going to fire this one. There we go, Colleen. She's got her go-to look. Looks great. Boom. And now compared to that frame before, you can see how we've got a little more of that blue color in the background, right? So we're getting there. We're getting closer. Now, obviously, again, this is a trade-off because you are changing the quality of light every time you do this. It's changing the angle. It's changing the softness. It may not be exactly how you want, but you are just limited in a space like this. So the next thing I would do if I really wanted to control this light is, like I said, this setup comes with a grid, and this is what the grid looks like. This is called an egg crate grid because, you know, when you buy eggs sort of in bulk, I guess, in a crate, they come in a thing that looks like that sort of. So let's put this on it's a Velcro thing. I'm going to lower this so I can get to it. And all I'm going to do is Velcro this right on here. And what an egg crate grid does is it narrows the beam of the light. And the way you know that it does that is because if you're looking at it straight on, you can see that the light is still going to be coming straight forward there. It has these very narrow columns that it creates. And from the front, it looks exactly the same as if you didn't have that grid there. But as soon as you get off to the side a little bit and look at it from the side, a lot of that light, if not all of it, is going to be blocked, right? Because of the shape of those columns, right? So it's like tunnels, little tubes that the light comes through. So once you get to the side and you're not seeing the front of that softbox anymore, that light is not coming in that direction. It's only going forward. So you're keeping it from going out to the sides and hitting the walls and hitting the background in places you don't want. So let's bring it back up again and step right back up in there, Colleen. And we're going to go just like that. So now it's going to be a subtle difference, I think, but we'll do one more like that. This is now with the grid, and boom. And there you go. You can see now how we're getting just a little bit more of that color. We're almost back where we were. Now, there's a couple other things you can do just to tweak it from here on out, right? So you could change the direction of this light if you wanted to. So, for example, you could take it, maybe put it more to the side if you want to do more of an extreme side shot. So the light is really going to the side, and any extra light is going back that direction and not towards that background. The idea is just to keep that light off the background. And light travels in a straight line, right? Until it bounces off something else. So it still travels in a straight line, but it just bounces off. So you could use a C-stand and put it maybe directly overhead and sort of shoot down like that, and maybe a fill card underneath, do some nice clamshell lighting that way. But by having the grid and by having it in close, you're going to keep as much of it off that background as possible. The last thing you could do in a space like this, it might be a bit of overkill, but you could use V-flats, which are large foam core pieces that's usually black on one side and white on the other. And by using the black side, you're actually blocking the light from hitting that background. So what I might do is you could either buy regular pieces of foam core, you could buy official V-flats that are already made. They're usually taped together in a V shape so they can stand on their own. There's a company called V-Flat World that makes really nice ones that actually fold in half. So for a home studio, they're pretty good because they're a lot smaller and they store easier than if you were working in a full-time studio space. But what I might do with those is put them in the background and really block the light from the walls, right? Because you don't want the white walls bouncing back. And then maybe even a piece of foam core over the top to prevent from coming down to the ceiling. So if I was doing a headshot, I would build a little cage around her in the background, not around her, because I'm not worried as much about the light hitting Colleen. I'm worried about the light hitting the background. So I would do everything I could to block the light from bouncing back using those black V-flats. So there's a few things like that you can do. It depends on your space. It depends on your gear. But that's the idea, is just to keep that light off of the background as much as possible. So thanks, Tim, for sending in that question. What do you guys think? Do you work in a small home studio? How do you deal with all that light? I know some people have actually painted their walls, darker colors to keep that light from bouncing around. Sometimes it's nice to have white and just have a nice, light coming from everywhere, and it's a nice, beautiful key light, beautiful soft key light if you want it that way. But your choice. It's all about creativity, right? So thanks again, Tim. Let me know what you guys are doing in the comments below. I'll try to answer as many of those questions as I can. Remember, I'm back here every week, every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern with a brand new question. Make sure you go to AskDavidBergman.com to ask your questions there. I hope you're already a subscriber to the Adorama YouTube channel. Colleen's a subscriber to the Adorama YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon down below so you can get all the latest and greatest as soon as they come out. So thanks very much. I'll see you back here next week with a brand new question right here on Ask David Bergman.